What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Daft Previews, and I'm here once again to take you through some of my favorite plays for this upcoming slate. I apologize I wasn't able to get a full video out yesterday, but the tips we shared still banged. 3.1 units profit, 8 and 5 on individual single bets, so another winning day in the books on the season. 72.33 units profit, so I shall take that. And just did a test, and I'm not pregnant. I just still happen to have COVID. So, given I'm not feeling 100%, I'm going to switch things up a little bit. I have done a short list of leans for today, so I'll take you through all players that I'm considering betting on tomorrow. I don't have the energy to take you through every player in every single game, but still going to provide you with some value. Now, if that sounds interesting, let's go. All right, so we're kicking things off with the Brooklyn Nets versus the Indiana Pacers. Great news in terms of lineups, no game time decisions or anything like that. Everybody's healthy, ready to go. In this particular game, there's two leans that I wanted to share with you. The very first one is this play right up here at the top. It's Miles Turner under 8.5 rebounds plus assists. Now, he's gone under this in 9 out of his last 10 games. Pretty excellent. He's gone under in 14 of his last 20. In head-to-head matches, he's gone under in 3 out of his last 4 games against the Brooklyn Nets. If you want to talk about his matchup, it's a great matchup here for the under. On the season, the Nets allow the third fewest rebounds to centers, and they allow the fifth fewest assists to centers on the season. So, given that everybody's healthy as well, not only will the Nets have Nick Claxton, but Daron Sharp will be there. It's another big body that Miles Turner has to deal with. And then given that the Indiana Pacers are fully healthy, Jalen Smith, for example, can take some of the Miles Turner minutes that he'd normally expect to see. And if we look at his minutes in his last 10, he's playing about 27 minutes per game. In those head-to-head games against the Brooklyn Nets, also played about 27 minutes. So the under has a very good chance of hitting here. Minus 119 odds at the moment. So I'm going to do some research, only into the lines. I'll do some line shopping to see if we can get some better odds. But I'm also going to see how centers have performed against Miles Turner and the Brooklyn Nets, for example. So I'll check the center game logs to see what's been happening there. And if a lot of the teams coming up against the Brooklyn Nets, if their centers have been slow on the boards and the assist side of things, I'll definitely be taking the under in this one. I'll be using StatsMuse for that. So if you're interested in doing a similar exercise, jump on a StatsMuse, in game log, centers game log versus the Brooklyn Nets, and then all the centers that they've played, their game logs will show up, and you can check the box scores from there. The next player that I wanted to talk through is Tyrese Haliburton, and we're not looking at his points or assists or anything like that. I'm actually interested in checking out his steals plus blocks. Check this out. So the line is 1.5, over 1.5 steals plus blocks, and minus 106 odds, pretty close to plus money. So I do like that. Now he's cashed the over in this in 8 of his last 10 games, which is very good. If we look at how he's performed against Brooklyn, 5 consecutive games now, he's covered this with ease. He's covered this in steals alone. But to get the steals plus box and still get it close to plus money, it's a pretty arousing sight, if you ask me. If you just looked at his steals, you'll get it at plus 210, which he's hit in 5 consecutive games against the Nets. In his last 10, he's still cashed this in 7 out of his last 10. So, I don't know. I might put half a unit on this for Haliburton as a high-value single, and then put 2 units on him on his steals plus blocks. So, the matchup, it's not a great one though, but I also have already checked on StatMuse just Tyrese Haliburton game log against Dennis Schroeder, and Tyrese Haliburton has covered this 1.5 steals plus box in 6 out of his last 8 games against Dennis Schroeder. So yeah, I'll look into it a little bit further to see how other teams have gone up against the Brooklyn Nets or other guards, and then we'll see what comes out of that. So those are the 2 leans that I have in that very first game. The next one is the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Detroit Pistons. Now, this game, unfortunately, few game time decisions. We've got Santi Aldama, John Conchar, Cade Cunningham, Sasa, Taj Gibson, all game time decisions in this one. The line's only 2.5 points for the Detroit Pistons, so hopefully if the guys we do choose to pick, they do play, and it gives them more opportunities. So the first one I'm looking at here is Santi Aldama. So I'm looking at his first quarter points. 2.5. As you guys know, been hitting these first quarter props very well as of late. He's got a good matchup here against the Pistons. He's covered this over in 9 out of his last 10 games, which is pretty crazy, right? 5 consecutive games, 9 out of his last 10. Looking at his last 20, he's gone over this in 16 of his last 20 games, which is an 80% hit rate. Pretty good sample size. And in head-to-head matchups, he's covered in 2 out of his last 3. The last time he played the Pistons, only scored 2 points in the first quarter. But what I've noticed is that in these 3 games against the Pistons, he's only played on average 5.3 minutes in that first quarter. Given the Grizzlies have really depleted over the last 10 games, Aldama's playing almost over 9 minutes in each first quarter. The very least, he should play 8 minutes in this. So I haven't bet this just yet. I'm going to still research it a little bit further. What I'm going to be looking at is his shot attempts, really. I want to see the volume. If he's going to score 2.5, he does take 3-pointers and stuff, but I'd like to see at least 3 field goal attempts on average. If I can see he takes at least 3 shots in the first quarter on average over his last 10 games, I'm taking this first quarter prop all day. So Santi Aldama's one. Another one I'm looking at here is an old faithful. I've been playing this quite heavily, probably over the last few weeks for Cade Cunningham, and it's his over in rebounds and assists, so over 12.5. So he's got a great matchup here against Memphis. Memphis do allow the most rebounds to point guards. They allow the 8th most assists to point guards. Now, Cade's covered this in 7 of his last 10 games, averaging 13.2 rebounds and assists. In his last matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies, had 4 rebounds and 10 assists, and that was in December. So, yeah, I don't mind this play. I've been betting it quite often. It's normally a lot lower than the 12.5, but the line's a little bit higher given the matchup. But I also want to check to see. It's Cade Cunningham. It's his left knee. I'll read a few articles to see what's going on with Cade Cunningham before I make my decision on that one. But yeah, I'm betting on 2 players who are game time decisions, which isn't great, but let's see how the research goes. And then the next game, it's the Boston Celtics versus the Charlotte Hornets. So Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, main game time decisions in this one. But the only player that I really have on my short list is Derek White. And I guess the reason for that is a lot of the props and the lines for a lot of these Celtics players are a lot higher given the matchup. Celtics 17-point favorites in this game, which I don't love. But Derek White, I'm looking at over 14.5 points. There's great odds. It's plus money, plus 105. So we like that. Does have a somewhat difficult matchup here. The Charlotte Hornets has somehow figured out how to defend 2 guards, but I'm not overly concerned by that because Derek White's not a number 1 option anyway. They're going to have their hands full with Brown, Tatum, Porzingis, provided they play, of course. But check it out. Derek White is now covered this in 6 consecutive games. Even since Drew Holiday's come back, he's still been able to cash. So if we check out his games with Drew Holiday. So he's cashed in his last 2 since Drew Holiday came back from his injury, 22 and 15 points. So 14.5 points. This isn't going to, I don't think it'll be a high scoring game. The Charlotte Hornets don't play at a very fast pace. I don't love this pick, I'm being honest with you, but it's the only lean I could find from this. And that's purely because his recent form is great. His form against his opponent is excellent. Check this out. So he's covered in 3 of his last 4 against the Charlotte Hornets. Only played them once this year, so in November. And he scored 33 points in that game. So I wanted to check the box score in that game to see who played and who didn't, to see why Derek White absolutely murdered them. Could it be that everyone was there and he was the only guy left open? I'm not too sure. So, yeah, that's one thing I'm going to look into. In the next game, though, it's the Orlando Magic versus the Portland Trailblazers. So I think I just got the 1 lean in this game. In terms of lineups, Jeremy Grant still a game time decision, but he's the only one really that's going to move any lines. Chances are he doesn't play because he never does. Orlando completely healthy. So there's 2 players. Actually, there's only 1 player that I really like in this game. And I'm leaning towards this. I'm thinking of taking Paolo Banchero's under in his PRA, under 34.5. Now, he's cashed the under in 8 of his last 10 games. In his last 20 games, he's cashed the under 13 times. So the recent form definitely trending down. And the Orlando Magic are completely healthy. So we don't need to see Banchero go crazy here. Cole Anthony can get it done off the bench. We've seen Jonathan Isaac get busy off the bench as well. Franz Wagner is running mate. He can get busy with it. Wendell Carter can get a lot of rebounds. Mo Wagner off the bench can get a lot of rebounds. They got Fultz coming off the bench to get some playmaking done. Like, they're a pretty deep team. Like they're not, they don't have the greatest players, but they're pretty deep, meaning the bench gets used quite heavily, which is why they're study forced to do too much. So Banchero, really liking the under in this one. Even if we look at the matchup here, we can see for Portland, despite Portland being, pretty much the bottom third of everything, when it comes to power forwards, they allow the 12th fewest points, the 4th fewest rebounds, and the 11th fewest assists to power forwards on the season. So I do like the matchup here if we're looking at the under. And if we look at head-to-head matchups, in 3 head-to-head matchups, Banchero's averaging 29.6 points, rebounds, and assists against Portland. His last matchup with them only had 25, 14.7 rebounds, 4 assists. I think in order for this to absolutely blow, he's going to have to score at least 25 points. And if you look at his last 10 games, he's only scored more than 25 points once, and that was against the Toronto Raptors, who don't defend power forwards whatsoever. So Orlando, 16-point favorites in this one as well, so there's also a chance of getting a blowout. So, yeah, I do like that one for Banchero, but I'm still going to look into it a little bit further. Haven't made any final decisions yet, but I do really like that one. Now, we're jumping into the next game. It's the Chicago Bulls versus the Atlanta Hawks. Jalen Johnson is a game-time decision for Atlanta. So I'm choosing not to play any Atlanta players because he can have some ramifications on everything. And for the Chicago Bulls, according to RotoWire, like Desonmu and Caruso, they're highlighted in gray, but there's no game-time decision tag next to them, which is quite interesting because those are 2 players that I'm looking at. But I actually have 4 players that I'm really considering for this particular game, and they all play for the Bulls. So the first one I'm looking at here is Alex Caruso, points plus assists. So he's been in the starting lineup for quite some time now, but check this out. I'm not betting him because he just had this monster game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're on a back-to-back. It's got nothing to do with that. I'm looking at his points plus assists over 15.5. He's hit this in 8 out of his last 10 games, which I love. The matchup, it's not a bad matchup either. Up against the Atlanta Hawks, the Hawks play with a lot of pace. The Bulls don't. They play with the 2nd slowest pace. The Hawks, 7th fastest pace. But still, Caruso heavily involved in the offense. They're running without a true point guard. So Kobe White, Desonmu, Caruso, DeRozan, they all get assists. They kind of share the load there. And he's covered it quite well. In head-to-head matchups, he's only covered in 1 of his last 4 against Atlanta. But the last time he versed them in December, towards the end of December, 5 assists and 11 points. In that game, played 29.2 minutes, right? So if you look at his last 10 games, Alex Caruso playing 33 minutes a night. So he's seeing increased production. He's averaged 9.3 field goal attempts, 8.1 potential assists in those head-to-head matchups. Even if we just isolate it to this particular game, his most recent game, in that game, he took 10 shots and he had 5 potential assists in that game. So definitely seeing increased opportunity for scoring and for assists for Alex Caruso. So I don't mind that. The reason why I'm sitting on the fence is because I like Ayo Desonmu for the same play, points plus assists. Now, he's got a similar matchup. It's not too bad against Atlanta. He's covered this line in 8 of his last 10 games as well. His line's only 2 points higher than Alex Caruso's. In head-to-head matchups, he's killed him in the last 2 games. So last 2 games against Atlanta were both this season. 19-4, followed up by 29-7. So he definitely has a higher upside, Ayo Desonmu. And you can say over his last 5 games, that's like a real baseline for him. It's very close to what he's averaging on the season. So over his last 10, averaging 23.9 points plus assists. So I don't mind that as well. I just don't want to take them both for the same bet. But I do have a feeling they could kind of cash anyway. But yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant on both. Who knows? We'll see where I land on that, but I'll research them both a bit further. Next player that I'm looking at is DeMar DeRozan. So what I'm looking at for DeMar DeRozan is actually under 5.5 points in the first quarter. So check this out. So he's cashed the under in 7 out of his last 10 games. On the season, check this out. On the season, he's cashed the under 53 out of 73 games, right? And that's purely because DeMar DeRozan does a lot of his work late. In the first quarter, he's happy to sit back, let the likes of Kobe White, Desonmu, Caruso actually try to feed Vucevic very early in the game as well. But yeah, I've noticed that with DeRozan. So yeah, the hit rate is excellent. In a game against Atlanta, there's a potential for Jalen Johnson to be playing here. Most likely picks up DeMar DeRozan as well. Bit of size, might make it a little bit difficult for him, for DeRozan to get those middies off. But one thing I'm going to look at the volume. So for DeRozan, if I'm gonna take this bet, probably like to see an average of at least, actually not at least, but no more than four to five field goal attempts in the first quarter. So if I see less than four, I'm taking it straight away, pretty much. But if he's getting the shots up and they're just not going in, it's not going to be a bet that I take. But that's definitely one that I'm considering. And the last one, similar type of play, it's actually Kobe White. And I'm looking at the under in his first quarter as well. So what worries me is the last time I took Kobe White's under in the first quarter, he absolutely went off. Check this out. You can see it here against Washington. So he scored 8 points in that first quarter against Washington. I took his under, and he absolutely killed it. And the reason why I picked him is because he had gone under like 8 of his last 10. But what we've seen here is in his last 3 games, he hasn't even scored a point first quarter. So he's been a very slow starter. The matchup is a good matchup, though, against the Atlanta Hawks, who don't defend point guards very well. So I'm a little bit cautious around that. He does play 9 minutes in the first quarter. In head-to-head matchups, he's gone under in 5 out of his last 6 games against Atlanta as well. But he's only played 2 games since he's been in the starting lineup. So I want to investigate that a bit further, see what the volume is like. If it was 5.5, I'd eat it up straight away. 4.5, given the fact that this guy shoots a lot of 3-pointers, might be a little bit risky, but that's one thing that I'm considering as well. Kobe White's under. Jumping into the last game, there's a few players that I do like in this game. So let's talk about it. It's the Phoenix Suns versus the New Orleans Pelicans. No game time decision in this one. Brandon Ingram is still out, but pretty much what you see is what you're going to get, unless you like betting on the bench players. The first player I'm going to look at here is Trey Murphy. So I think I've bet his rebound prop 2 games in a row now. 2 games in a row. And he cashed it with relative ease. Now, his line hasn't moved. If anything, the odds have gotten better. And that's because he does have a somewhat difficult matchup here against the Phoenix Suns. So, but this 5.5 rebound line's been cashing since Brandon Ingram's been gone. So Brandon Ingram has missed 7. Well, Trey Murphy's played 7 games this season without Brandon Ingram in the lineup. And what you can see here is his rebounds going up and up and up. So I might even play him to get 8 rebounds as well, but maybe 9 rebounds at extra plus money. But to get this at 5.5 at plus money, I feel like it's a no-brainer. What worries me is that it seems too easy to pick. And if I find other people are betting it, a lot of the times that's a sign that it's not going to win, but I can't not bet this, right? So Trey Murphy rebounds, I do like that. The Brandon Ingram not being there, his recent form is great. I don't care about the matchup. In mind, like Herb Jones probably not going to defend Herb Jones will defend Kevin Durant. Trey Murphy probably have to defend Grayson Allen or Bradley Beal, potentially Devin Booker, whoever it may be. But if Phoenix start to ISO on the offensive end, someone like Herb Jones and Trey Murphy will be sinking towards the rim anyway to pick up some easy boards. Valanciunas is going to have his hands full fighting with Nurkic all night, and Zion, not a reliable rebounder anyway. So I think Zion will actually be defending Grayson Allen for a lot of this game. But the other one I like is his first quarter rebound. So if you told me the other day, I bet on Trey Murphy first quarter rebounds, and check that out. He's cashed in 8 consecutive games now, and you can get this for plus money. Same reasons as the last bet to go over his 5.5 rebounds. Since Brandon Ingram's not there and he's been in the starting lineup, he's been cashing like crazy. So just ride it until the wheels come off, right? This could be the game, but if it does lose, I've made enough money on Trey Murphy rebound props to accept that. But yeah, I do like that. But the other play that I'm actually leaning at the moment is an under here for Trey Murphy. I'm just trying to find what it is, and it's his plus assists. Check this out. So I'm looking at under 18.5 points plus assists for Trey Murphy. Now he's gone under in 73% of games this year. He's gone under in 7 out of his last 10. And let's go without Brandon Ingram. He's gone under in 6 out of the 7 games without Brandon Ingram. Went over the 1 game against the Milwaukee Bucks, 15 points, and he also had 5 assists. That was a crazy game, to be honest, but for him to get 5 assists is extremely unlikely. If we look at the matchup here, the Phoenix Suns allow the 4th fewest points to small forwards, and they allowed the fewest assists to small forwards. Now, Trey Murphy is starting at the 2 guard position, but that doesn't, where he starts isn't going to impact how I bet this. Chances are, if we look at defensively, well, Phoenix aren't equipped defensively anyway. They're not monsters. Trey Murphy is a 3 in my opinion. And yeah, I'm really loving the look at this. I just worry having 3 different bets on Trey Murphy. What if he doesn't rebound and then he scores a lot of points, he gets a lot of assists, right? But I don't know. I'm going to research this a little bit further, but I do like it. The line in this game is Phoenix -1, so it should be close. You should get a lot of opportunities, which worries me a little bit. It works out for our rebound prop, but on the points and the assist side of thing, he's barely hit that, without Brandon Ingram. I think this Milwaukee Bucks game, him getting 5 assists is an ultimate outlier. Wouldn't surprise me if he averages 2 assists a game. For him to get 5 against his Phoenix Suns team, highly unlikely in my opinion. So I was going to just do the under in his points prop, 15.5, and look at that. At that, if we go without Brandon Ingram, this year, so that's very much the same. So he's only cashed in 1 out of his last 7. So has gotten very close to it a few times, but yeah. I just really don't like his assists. I would not bet him to cover his assist prop. I think his assist prop's 3, 2.5. So, and he's gotten close to it, killed it against the Bucks. So, yeah, either one of those is fine, I think, but I'll research them a little bit further. Trey Murphy fading his points and his assists. Another one that I'm considering, easy. I think it's easier if I just type it, is CJ McCollum. So I've been writing this bet pretty much the whole time since Brandon Ingram's been out, and it hasn't failed me yet. So if we look at CJ's numbers without Brandon Ingram, so 8 out of his last 10 games, CJ McCollum's covered this. This game against Miami, he barely played. I think he only played 14 minutes. Yep. And 19 points against the Golden State Warriors back in October. So as of late, without Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum's been a beast. I think he's shooting the ball at least 20 times a game. Yep. Especially this recent stretch. He's taken more than 20 shots. Line's at only 22.5. He's got a great matchup here. The Phoenix Suns allow the 10th most points to point guards on the season. I feel like this is a very straightforward bet, but it has been for quite some time. Now, CJ might get off to a slow start, but he just somehow figures it out. He's not shooting a great percentage, I got to tell you. Last 5 games, his shot percentage has been bad. It's been down. But if you look at his last 2 games against the Phoenix Suns, 29 and 27 points, both of those games in December. In those games, he shot 54% and 58%. So this is what he's capable of. His ceiling is to get closer to 30, I believe, without Brandon Ingram. But given his percentages have been low, he's been hovering around the 23 points mark. I think you will see an uplift in his shooting percentage against a good matchup here against the Phoenix Suns. He could cash this over. I don't know if I'd take him for 30, 25 I could play around with, but the odds don't change too much. Yeah, if you take 24.5, it's only plus 115. So I think just take his regular over. That's what I'm thinking about anyway. And then the last one I'm thinking about is Zion Williamson. So Zion, I'm looking at potentially over in his points or just his first quarter points. I'm not too sure on that just yet. So he does have a good matchup here. The Suns aren't defending power forwards very well at all. Zion's covered in only 6 of his last 10. But if we look at his 6 of his last 10 without Brandon Ingram, this season he's cashed in 4 of his last 9. But these last 4 games is from Brandon Ingram's most recent injury. And Zion Williamson's been aggressive as hell. Like, only scored 25 points in this game here up against the Boston Celtics. A lot of those points he got late, but what I do like playing a lot of minutes. 36, 38, 33, and 40 minutes in these last 4 games. So the opportunity is going to be there. His field goal attempts, not as high as CJ McCollum's, and I wish they were. But I think just the fact that he's getting to the line as well, check this out. His free throw attempts in the last 4 games, he's really starting to figure it out. What can get us undone, though, is if he doesn't shoot very well. So over his last 10 games, shooting 67% from the line. In this Boston game, he only shot 7 for 14. So he really struggled in that game. This is a home game for him, though. So hopefully being at home, he shoots a lot better. So if we just check his free throw percentage in his last 10, he's shooting 68% in his last 10 home games. So yeah, he's going to shoot better than 50%, which he did against Boston. And when he does, he can cover this line, that's for sure. Also, looking at his head-to-head numbers, he's covered this in 2 out of his last 3. So these games here, he scored 35 points in both of those games. They were both home games. So he's had 3 out of his last 4. My apologies. And if you take Brandon Ingram out of it, he's covered in 3 consecutive games against the Phoenix Suns without Brandon Ingram scoring 30-plus points. So, yeah, I do like Zion to go over here. The problem is if I read this game wrong and the Phoenix Suns somehow dismantle the Pelicans, then there's a chance Zion and CJ both go under. So to potentially save myself a little bit of harm, I could take CJ for 20 and Zion for 25 and leave it at that. Then we're only risking 1. But what if only 1 goes over? And this is the puzzle that we try to solve for. But we'll see what happens. Haven't made many final decisions yet. Those are just the list of leans that I have for tomorrow. I'm tired as hell. It's been almost 30 minutes. It's a lot longer than I thought it would be. But if you haven't already, be sure to sign up to Outlier, 7-day free trial. Encourage you to use it, especially whilst I'm still got this pregnancy thing or this COVID thing and I'm still positive. Download it, master your own research. The playoffs are not too far away. When the playoffs come around, you're going to need to dive in deep because when those playoffs do come, there's less markets available, which means all of those lines are going to be sharper. So the better that you can get at researching all your picks, the more money you are ultimately going to win. But look, I appreciate you guys if you made it this far. I'll catch you guys in the next one for sure. Best of luck. Peace.
Sub to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to your line from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice on the daily. You don't even have to pay me.